Hi, I'm Jessica Rector, your host and founder of This Man Thing, where we help men think bigger, be bigger, and play bigger. We want them to gain more freedom, confidence, and success. You can find us at thismanthing.com. You can also join our free Facebook group at thismanthing.com/groups, where men are having real conversations and building much needed community, support, and camaraderie with other men. Kevin Wall is a man obsessed with purpose. For over 20 years, he has studied, researched, implemented, and led thousands of people to discover, define, develop, and deploy their purpose in life. A father of two, a husband of one, and a coach to many. Please help me welcome my guest today, the founder and creator of Fulfilled Purpose, Kevin Wall. Woo!
Thank you, Jessica. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. So tell us a little bit about you and how you got started on fulfilling your purpose and becoming the creator and founder of Fulfilled Purpose.
So that's a great question. My journey really started back when I was in high school, maybe 23 or so years ago. I was assigned a project in an English class to study a topic of intense interest to us. And the question I really posed myself was, what's the meaning of life? And it's kind of a big question, especially for a 17, 18-year-old kid to ask. And half of it was natured in my smart aleck nature. So I tend to be a clown a bit and get myself into a little bit of trouble. So I posed this question, and for some reason, my teacher allowed me to study it. And it kicked off a passion in me, an intense drive to really understand what is the meaning of this life. Not just myself, but all of us individually. You know, what are we here to do? Is there a reason that we're born? And is there something to contribute to the world? So the approach I took is actually study that question from the perspective of 50 world religions. Everything from the three major religions, Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, and everything else from animism to Zen Buddhism, really understanding what the purpose of life is. So I studied that question, got an A on the paper. You know, it took all of 9 months. I went and interviewed hundreds of people at the time and really just asked that question over and over and over again. And I never stopped asking the question. So we flash forward to about 8 years ago. This question had still burned in me. It was a topic of intense interest to me. At that time, I had been downsized, right-sized, outsourced, and outright fired from a number of companies. And I was working for a company that had just been acquired by Honeywell, which is one of the, what was at the time one of the Dow companies. One of the Dow Jones companies, one of the top 20 companies in the world. And my job was at risk. Having been through that before, you know, I made a decision to kind of jump ship and look for other opportunities. And I went into the financial services space. It's a little bit relevant because I signed my contract on September 15th, 2008. And for anyone in your audience who the market has...
September 15th!
Oh, no kidding. So it was a great day.
It was an amazing day.
Yeah. So the market relevance for any of your audience members, or anyone that might study market history, that was 2 days before Lehman Brothers filed bankruptcy, and the stock market went into this crazy tailspin. So at the time, you know, I thought, oh my God, what did I do? But after taking a step back, I said, this is a great opportunity. This is a moment in time when people are going to need advice more than any other. So I dove in headlong and worked my tail off for about 4 years and built the book to about $10 million in business. Wow. Just by going out and meeting people and talking and listening and asking questions and wow. Really providing a service. But at the same time, I own rental real estate. So I was spending about 90 to 95 hours a week working, and I was not happy. I have 2 young kids, as I mentioned in my intro. They're 12 and 9 now, so they were 4 and 1 at the time. Wow. And I was exhausted trying to be a father, trying to be a good husband, trying to be a good provider. And it wore me out.
Yeah.
So I took a huge step back in life and said, what next? And from there, I started to launch the coaching business.
Wow, that's a journey. That's very, very exciting. Yeah. Very exciting. I can't believe you had that thought when you were like 17 or 18 in high school. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty deep for a 17 or 18-year-old. And then to spend 9 months doing it, right? And then how it's totally come full circle, yeah. Right? And that's what you're doing now. You know, and so what in your journey, what have you found is the meaning of life, quote unquote, purpose of life? And, you know, I don't know if there's any one meaning of life for everyone, but, you know, there's going to be people who may say, you know what, I've heard that term a lot, like, what's your purpose? What's your purpose? What's your purpose? And I have no idea. So how do people find out? Where do people start? And what does that even mean?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. So let me unpack that a little bit. I think, you know, for me, the purpose of life is to really live in love, right? So it really comes down to experiencing as much as you can and really loving the people that you're around. You know, when we look at Christianity, you know, Jesus at one point said, love your neighbor, and then was asked, who's your neighbor? It says, well, everybody, right? So it's just love other people and really just love the experiences that you have. You know, at the same time, I think we have, that's the overarching purpose of life, is to experience as much as you can, give as much as you can, and love every moment as much as possible.
That's quotable, Kevin. That's quotable. That's a great quote.
Great.
Quotable.
Fantastic. Thank you. So that's the big overarching picture. Now, individually, I think we have unique positions that we can find ourselves in where we can actually do that on an individual scale. So one of the things that I walk my clients through is a process of that define, discover, develop, and deploy. So, discover, define, develop, and deploy. And the part of discovery is really looking at that story of your life, right? And owning it. You know, every step of the way, all the highs and all the lows, and really look at the story of you, who you are, the different experiences you've been through, the good and the bad, and really understand what's that thread. So when I look at that, right, really driving to find what my purpose is, has chased me as much as I have chased it. So when we take a step back as well, I think we can also look, when we get into the define mode, we're looking at, you know, what are the things that we really want to do. So when we look at discover, we're looking at, you know, those are the things that I think, you know, what do you love to do? You know, what just gets you up in the morning and you're just excited to be able to do every day, right? So what do you love to do? Define is what matters most to you, right? So that's really looking at your values and really, you know, what do you really value in life? You know, what's important to you? Is it family? Is it success? Is it money? Who knows? I'm not saying anyone's wrong about any of those things, but what do you really value? The next step would be,
Kevin, that whenever I ask my clients, who are you? Because I think it's extremely important in order for you to get where you want to be, in order to know what you want. You have to know who you are, which kind of goes back to your discover initial phase. They can't answer that because they don't even know what it means. And I always say, like, who are you outside of the roles you play in your career? Who are you at your core? And guys tell me all the time, like, Jessica, I don't even know what that means. Can you break that down for me? So if people don't know what that means, where do you tell them where to start with that? Because that's kind of the fundamental phase, right? That's kind of the beginning. And then from what I'm gathering, your other steps build on that. So where do they start if they don't even know what that means because they've never taken the time to really find out who they are?
Yeah, that's a good one, because that's something I run into all the time as well. Here's what I do with my my clients and your audience members. You can do this right now, actually, or you can begin to do this right now. Take out a piece of paper, draw a straight line straight across. Okay, on the left side of the line, represents the day you were born, and the right side of the line represents today. And literally point out all of the highs and lows. You can point out that, scoring the winning run in the baseball game when you were 8 years old was a great high. And maybe you had a close loved one die when you were 9 years old, right? That is an extreme low. So you're going to want to scale that on a scale of 1 to 10. Plot that across the line, all the way through from the day you were born to the day you were through today. Take a lot of time really doing it. Mm-hmm. Really dive deep into doing it and really experience those emotions again, because those are all pivotal points in our lives where we really define who we are, right? So for me, just to give you an example, I guess, an extreme high point for me, which was also a low, is a really interesting thing when I did this exercise with myself. I think when I was in the 7th grade, maybe, it was the only year I didn't make the travel hockey team. And the reason being is I tried out because I'd broken my thumb in football, and I tried out with a cast on my hand. Mm-mm. So the coach said, we really can't take you because it's going to be another month before you're healed. We'll be into the season. We can't, gamble that. So it was a really low point. Well, fast forward about 2 weeks, I was sitting in the locker room. The head coach of the house team came in and said, Kevin, come out here. And he walked me out to the rink, and he had me look at the ice, and he said, what do you see out there? And I said, well, it's ice, coach. And he said, well, I need somebody to lead a team out there, and I want to make you the captain of this team. Oh. And I stood about a foot taller at that moment. And,
you brought tears to my eyes. That's
and it was one of those moments for me that really defined who I am, is that, I may not always make the team, but I'll always be a leader. Right?
Yeah.
I'll always have an opportunity to lead. So
wow, that's wonderful.
Those are the things you're looking for in your life, those things that really just socked you in the gut and then made you stand a foot taller afterwards. So those are the things that I do that really help them see, what's important. Once they get all the way through the timeline, you'll begin to just naturally see a thread that weaves its way through throughout that whole course of the timeline. For me, it was really defining who I am, discovering what I'm made of, and deploying my purpose out into the world.
Yeah, and one thing I always share is that it's just as important to know who you are not as to know who you are, like what you'll tolerate, what you'll stand up for, what really isn't that important, what really matters. Because I think a lot of times we focus so much on who we are, and we forget that there's also a side of us that who we're not. And it's okay to not be the person who is a people pleaser, right? It's okay to not be the person who tolerates injustice, things like that we don't think about. And so I think it's important to find out who we are, but also to dig into who you aren't, because that just allows you to become that much more self-aware, right? And when things come up in life, as they will, you'll know, okay, no, that's not acceptable to me, or yes, I will fully embrace that. And the more aware you are, the better version of yourself that you can be, and the more you can give out to the world and serve the world. So we went through the discover and the define. So tell us about developing. What's that look like?
Yeah, so developing is really that mission stage, right? So it's really, what do you want to do with the world? Or the way I phrase it is, what are you setting out to do, right? So what is it? What do you want to accomplish? So
what if you don't know?
What's that?
What if you don't know? Because there's so many guys out there that, guess what? They went to college. They even went to the college that their parents wanted them to go to. They graduated in the degree that their parents wanted, or because their dad was an accountant for so many years, or because everybody thought that they make a great financial planner, or one day be a doctor or a lawyer. So that's what they study, and they find themselves on this path where they're miserable. They're unhappy, like you, working 90, 95 hours a week and totally miserable, not having the time to really enjoy life, right? Not having the time to really enjoy their family or go out and meet people, or whatever the case is. But they don't have that time because this life, quote unquote, has kind of been dictated for them, and they've been a passenger in the seat of life. And so when you say, like, find your mission, what is it you really want to do? I sit there and think, if you don't know what that looks like, How do you go about finding out what that looks like? How do you get yourself on that path to do it? Because, you know, a lot of people say, oh, well, I did this and it led to this and it led to this. And and then that's when I found it. But if you've been, let's say you're in corporate America, or you've been working at, you know, you're a doctor and you've been doing this for 20 years, and you're like, this is not filling me up anymore. How do you know what that mission is, or how do you go about finding out what that is?
Yeah, again, a great question. And I think the best question I've heard to address this actually came from Tony Robbins. A great question to ask yourself, and your audience members can do this now. When you were 8 years old, what did you want to be when you grew up? And within that question, when you unpack that, a lot of kids, you know, they may want to be a baseball player, or, you know, so I hate the kids that wanted to be a doctor and today they're a doctor. It's like, you know, you knew what you wanted to do when you were 8 years old, and then you grew up and you did that. So
but are they fulfilled and happy doing it?
Right.
That's the question.
So, but then the follow-up question is why? What was it about that occupation, that profession, that really spoke to you, that really meant something to you? So did you want to be a doctor because you wanted to, you know, perform surgery, or did you want to be a doctor because you could help people? You could, help them be healthier. You could help them do all of these different, there's so many different types of doctors out there and so many different things that they do. Did you want to be a healer? So what does that mean to be a healer? So it's really just unpacking that deeper and deeper.
You know, I love that, Kevin, because when you said that, I was like, 8 years old. I don't remember what I wanted to be at 8 years old. But I do remember at one point in my life that when I was younger, I think I was in 7th grade, and I was like, I want to be a math teacher. Love math. I excelled in math. I want to be a math teacher. But it was because the sole reason why I wanted to be a math teacher was, because I loved it and I was really good at it, but was because I had a math teacher who impacted me so much so that I knew I was good in math, but and I had always been good at math, but she's the one who actually allowed me to start believing in myself as more than someone who was just really good at math, but someone who could achieve, someone who could leave. She even put me in this math competition that I myself would have never put myself in, even though that I knew that I excelled at math. I would have never done that. So it was because she believed in me that much that allowed me to step up into, even in 7th grade, being a better, bigger version of myself. And that's exactly why I wanted to be a math teacher, was because of the impact that she had on me. And so I think the power in that question is the why, right? Yeah. Why did you really want to do it? Because when I said, okay, math teacher, okay, I'm not a math teacher and I have no desire to be a math teacher now. But I think the power in that is why. And then also take the why and see how you can translate it over to your life now, right? And one of the great things, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but one of the great tests that kind of goes hand in hand with this is called the Strength Finders test. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it is a test that, for those of you not familiar with it, it's a test where you take, it's pretty quick, and you find your top strengths. And so I always recommend going and doing that and seeing if you're working and living and being where you're really strongest. And it's crazy amazing how accurate that is. Yeah. And if you're not, take a look at what you need to change, what you need to tweak in order to start working, being, doing, and living in your strengths, because then you just excel that much faster and you make a bigger impact and a bigger difference.
Exactly. Yeah, that book is great. That's one of the steps that I went through personally to really determine what do I want to do next when I left that financial services career. Yeah. So it's really that's a great point, that, finding your own inner strength and what you're naturally good at. And I think it lies within that same question of the why. Yes. Then there's smart alecks like me. When people asked me that when I was a kid, my answer was, what do you want to be when you grow up? I always said older and hopefully smarter. So it was one of those things.
Achieved that, right?
Yeah, I am. I've got both. I'm older and I think I'm smarter.
Yes, you are. I'm sure you are.
So it's.
But what's great about the Strength Finders is that when I first thought about it, I was like, oh, this is what it's going to say that, are my strengths. And let me tell you, it's not the strengths that I thought in my head what would be, because I'm like, oh, well, it'll say this or it'll say this, but there's so many strengths on there that you don't even think about, or you don't even, that don't come up in your everyday life that actually are spot on, dead on. And I just happen to also be working and doing and being and living in those strengths. So it works out amazing for me. So tell us about the deploying part.
Yeah. So the deploying part, at this point, we've discovered, what do you love to do? What matters most to you? And then, what are you setting out to do? And at the intersection of those three, we can come up with a comprehensive plan to really deploy that, to set action steps to say, all right, so this is where you are and this is where you want to go. And these are the things you need to do to make those happen. And at that point, it becomes more accountability and really taking steps to walk that out. Generally speaking, that's the shortest portion of the coaching, unless it's something that they want ongoing accountability. But it's the idea that you've already discovered what it is. Now we just need to figure out a way to make that happen.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's a situation where, well, take this for example. So you talked about all those people that they spent 20 years doing something and they hate it and they're not being fulfilled. I have a good friend who spent 20 years as a junior high music teacher. Okay. So think about working with junior high kids in general. So junior high kids, I love them, but they drive me nuts. I've worked with junior high kids for a long time and they're crazy. I have a junior high kid in my house right now. They're just so emotional and they're at that point stage where they're just wondering, who am I? And it's kind of that self-identity and really developing self. So she spent 20 years doing that and discovered, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't love it. She loved music. She loved teaching, but it just wasn't doing it for her. So she went back to school and got her CPA. So she went from middle school music teacher to CPA.
Talk about total switch.
Total opposites, right?
Wow.
So I asked the question, I said, well, how did you start here? And just like you said, mom and dad wanted her to be a teacher. My dad saw talent in her, and she just never wanted to teach it. She never wanted it. She loves music. She still does. But it's not really drove her. What really drove her was solving the problems of people's financial issues through the practice of accounting.
Wow, that's crazy how that shows up. So tell me a little bit about how confidence plays a role in this process and going from discovering to deploying, and how how we can increase our self-confidence along the way.
Yeah, so that's a huge key. I think there's three things that really prevent us from accomplishing anything that we set our minds to. One of those things is obviously overcoming fear. We have fears, especially if you're a doctor and you want to go and become a professional golfer. There's a bit of fear there because you're saying, you're going to make money doing this. The second thing is really procrastination, right? So it's one of those things that, I'll procrastinate later, but, we never accomplish it. But the biggest thing, and I think that what feeds into both of those things is confidence, right? So if you had confidence, if you think about the moments where you held your shoulders back and you really believe that you could do something, fear can't stop you, right? When you believe that you can accomplish something, you're not going to procrastinate. You're going to do it now.
You're going to,
strength, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing can hold you back from doing it. So the first thing is really to develop confidence. But then that question is how? How do you develop confidence? It's one thing that I've always had, and it probably goes back to, not making the travel hockey team.
Right.
But it's confidence that I always have a place. I always have something. So it's something I've naturally had my entire life. But then I really had asked that question, well, geez, how do I teach someone how to do that? So I distilled it down to 5 keys. There's 5 keys to creating killer confidence. And the first thing is you have to start by believing in yourself, right? You have to believe that you're important and you matter, that you fit into the cosmic
Yes.
realm of existence, that
Right.
you're here for a reason. Because the sheer probability of you even existing is so dramatically small that it can't be just happenstance. I mean, I could go through the math because I've looked at it, but it's like 1 in 17 trillion that,
Right.
your specific genetic composition would exist and that you would actually end up exactly who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting thing to do there is to say, all right, so if you were to change one of 3 things: when you were born, who you were born to, or where you were born, how dramatically different would your life
Yes,
be?
everything would change.
Everything would change. If you were born 100 years ago, right, but you
Yeah.
were still you to your same parents, how
Even
different
2
would your life
years,
be?
even 2 years before,
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you change one of those things. So you have to believe in yourself that you're here for a reason, you're here for purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple things that I help people do with that is, I help them design their own affirmations, which kind of sounds like a little bit like Stuart Smalley. I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and gosh darn it, people like me.
People like me.
But it's even more than that. It's really telling yourself the things you already know and you already believe, but you're just not really necessarily brave enough to admit it.
Right.
Right. So it's finding those things that you like about yourself and those things that you want to improve upon and turning those into proof positive affirmations where you can actually tell yourself those things and start walking those out. The second is exercise. I think exercise has a dramatic change on both the physical and the mental aspects of our lives, and we can really start to be able to do that. So I know we're kind of coming close on time here, so I'm just going to skim through these last 3.
Yeah.
But believe in yourself, explore yourself, right? So that's where you're really looking at, who are you, what matters to you. Huge thing is really give of yourself. What can you have to offer other people, right? So when we're not feeling confident, we're feeling, oh, geez, ho-hum, kicking rocks down the sidewalk. What can you give to the world? And it can be something just as simple as a smile, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just look someone in the eyes and say hello and smile.
Yes.
Your audience members, I want you to do that. As soon as you're done listening to this podcast, I want you to go and do that. Just look someone in the eyes. A great place to practice this is in line at the checkout.
Yes.
Store. I always look at the name tag. My wife is like, my wife tells me you're such a nerd. Like, why do you do that?
No, I tell people the same thing. I say, just at the grocery store, just smile at people. Yeah. Look at them and smile at them. If you're standing in line, say, hi, how are you? Wow, because one of my clients didn't want to say hi to someone. And I said, just start saying hi to people. Just start smiling at people. One of the things I believe is you don't build confidence sitting in your comfort zone, right? You build confidence by doing. You build confidence by being bold. You build confidence by being bigger and doing better. And so the more you do, the more confident you become, the easier it becomes to keep doing. You smile once, you may be like, I don't know, how are they going to respond? Well, the more that you smile at people, the more that they're going to receive it, and the more you're going to keep doing it. And then you become confident. Okay, wherever you go, you smile at people, you say hi to people, you wave to people, but you don't get confidence by staying in your comfort zone doing what you've been doing. It doesn't grow that way, right?
Absolute truth. Completely agree with that. And it's the simplest thing you can give. Yeah. Because you just change someone's perspective. I mean, they don't want to be standing there ringing things out most of the time. Any more than you want to be standing in line. If you can just give them a smile, it's a huge thing.
So quickly tell us the last 2 points.
Change yourself. Mm-hmm. Change yourself. So those are taking small changes, small actions to really improve your life. So it could be something as simple as flossing, right? So you want to just floss your teeth. Small changes. I mean, there's lots of reasons why, but small things. But then again, and kind of piggybacking on what you said about getting out of your comfort zone, challenge yourself. Find a topic that you really find interesting, go learn about it, and then really challenge yourself to say, what could I do with this? What's important to me in this arena, this area, that I could really challenge myself and become, proficient at.
Right. Awesome.
So thank you so much. You can create those things because you create those small successes
Yeah. Yeah. But those small
Yeah,
successes make a huge difference, right? Yeah. So thank you so much.
exactly.
Tell us very quickly one takeaway. Like if somebody, we went over all these juicy things that if somebody wanted to start today, building confidence, or they wanted to start today on the 4 steps of discovering who they are, what's one thing that they can do, take action on immediately to do? I know you mentioned the draw the line. So let's say they do that outside of drawing the line
Yep.
from where you started to where you are today. What's one thing that they can do?
Yeah. So one thing I think that your audience can really do to really start to find and fulfill their purpose in life is to really ask that question, why, right? Why am I doing this? Why am I not happy doing this?
Hmm.
And what can I do about it, right? So I think that question, why, of the reporter questions, who, what, when, where, why is the most important thing to really finding your purpose, to really understand what it is that you want to do in this life and how you can start doing that.
Love that. One of the exercises that I teach in my book, Breaking the Silence, Taking the Shh out of Shame, is called
Yes.
the why exercise. And it's
Yes.
all about asking yourself why, but ask yourself why enough that you get to actually the core issue, right?
Yeah.
So why, and then you ask it again, but why are you doing that? But then why do you feel that way? And then why do you feel that way? And you keep asking it, and it'll come back to the real reason and not the things that we tell ourselves, right? We tell ourselves things to make ourselves feel better as opposed to telling ourselves the truth, right? And getting back to the core issue. So, so tell us how people can find you, where they can connect with you.
Yeah, so I would say that the 2 best places to connect with me are on my website, which is www.fulfilledpurpose.com. You'll find a lot of interesting content on that site. The second place you can find us is on Facebook in the Fulfilled Purpose group. Fulfilled Purpose is the name of the group, so if you search that or just type into the web box www.facebook.com/fulfilled purpose. You can find me there. But your guests can always feel free to email me. I'm kevin@fulfilledpurpose.com. Would love to answer any questions you have and field any questions you have about this conversation.
Awesome. And just tell us in one sentence a little bit about your ebook.
Yeah, so that's right. I apologize. So I do have an ebook on the website. It's called The 5 Keys to Killer Confidence. It's the 5 steps in more depth of what your listeners can do to really develop that confidence. It's not just the superficial stuff, but there's actual action steps. Each step has 2 actions that they can take to develop a core belief in themselves, or to really challenge themselves, really explore themselves, and different things that they can do, and some easy ways to implement those.
Awesome. I love that title too. I feel that no matter how much confidence any of us has, we can always use more confidence. We always want more confidence because there's going to be one area in our lives where we're not as confident as we want to be. And so that is a great tool. Thank you so much. Thank you for being on here, Kevin. And for those of you listening and you want to connect with us, go to thismanthing.com. You can also find us in our Facebook group, and please feel free to join us there at thismanthing.com/groups. Or you can also search for us on Facebook under This Man Thing. We would love to have you in that group where real men are having real conversations. And here's the thing, I think every man's a real man, right? It doesn't take any quality or any talent or any skill to be a real man. And so we help you become a better version of yourself. And we look forward to connecting with you. You can reach out to me personally at Jessica@thismanthing.com. And until next time, have a fabulous, amazing day, and we'll see you on the next podcast. Bye-bye.